Taurus, there is a pattern in your life that has been showing itself more than once. And you have seen it. On some level, quietly, in the honest moments when you sit with yourself and let yourself think clearly, you have recognized it. You are not the kind of person who moves carelessly through life. You are loyal. You are thoughtful. You take your time with things that matter. You weigh your decisions with a care that most people simply do not possess. That is one of the most admirable things about you. But sometimes, and this is true for every deeply feeling, deeply patient person, that same loyalty and patience can become the very thing that allows a pattern to stay longer than it should. Because you give things a chance. Because you believe in people. Because you are willing to work at something, to stay with it through difficulty, to offer more than what is easy. And patterns know that about you. They count on it. But here is the truth that the universe wants you to receive today, clearly and with love. This pattern is not showing itself again to shame you. It is not a sign that you have failed or that you are broken, or that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It is showing itself because this time, something genuinely different has happened inside you. This time you have the awareness, the experience, and the strength to meet it differently. These 11 signs confirm that the pattern is moving through your life again, and that you are, at last, truly ready to choose a different path through it. 1. A situation has arrived that feels deeply familiar in a way that makes you pause. It is not the exact same situation. The details are different. The setting may be different. The names and the faces may be different. But something in the structure of it, the shape of it, the feel of it as it unfolds is deeply, unmistakably familiar. And you have noticed. That pause you feel, that brief, quiet moment of hesitation where something inside you says, wait, I know this, that is not imagination. That is not overthinking. That is your most intelligent, most experienced self recognizing a structure it has navigated before. The pause is important. That pause is wisdom speaking. Most people who walk into a repeated pattern do so because they never pause long enough to recognize it. They are moving too fast, or they are too caught up in the new details that disguise the familiar structure. But you have paused. That pause is the first act of consciousness. That pause is the moment where a new outcome becomes possible, because you have stopped long enough to actually look at what is in front of you before you move deeper into it. Taurus, do not let anyone tell you that this pause is hesitation or fear or weakness. This pause is power. It is the kind of power that only comes from having genuinely grown through what came before. You are standing at the beginning of a familiar road, and instead of walking forward automatically the way you did before, you are standing still for a moment and actually looking at it. That is everything. That is the beginning of change. Stay in that pause a little longer. Let it give you what it has to give you, because what you see clearly in this pause will determine which direction you take from here. And this time you have everything you need to take the right one. 2. A person in your current life carries energy that reminds you of someone from your past. This does not mean they are the same person. It does not mean they have the same intentions, the same character, or the same ultimate role in your life. But there is something in the way they move through their interactions, in the particular way they make you feel, in the dynamic that begins to form between you and them, that echoes something from your past. You feel it in your body before your mind has put it into words. There is a familiar tension, or a familiar comfort, or a familiar quality in the way the energy flows between you. You may have already noticed it and set the feeling aside, telling yourself it is not fair to compare people, that everyone deserves a fresh start, that you should not bring old experiences into new situations. And there is wisdom in that perspective. But there is also a different kind of wisdom, the kind that says your gut recognizes patterns for a reason. The kind that says your nervous system has been keeping records even when your conscious mind was busy moving on. When someone arrives in your life and their energy carries echoes of someone who was part of a painful or difficult chapter in your past, that recognition is a gift. It is not a judgment. It is information. Taurus, you are perceptive enough to feel this and wise enough now to hold both truths at once. This person is their own person, and they also carry an energy that your history knows well. Use both truths. Keep your heart open and your awareness awake. Because this time you are allowed to know what you know and let it inform how you move forward. If what you are hearing feels accurate, know that it could happen if you applied this energy consistently for 21 consecutive days. That is the 21-day challenge pinned at the top of this channel. It is built around daily guidance, focused direction, and real momentum. If you are tired of staying in the same cycle, that structure is exactly what has been missing. 3. You are making a choice that a quiet part of you recognizes from before. You may be in the middle of making it right now, or you may have already made it and are watching it unfold, or you may be standing at the exact moment where the choice is about to be required of you. But there is a quiet recognition, not loud, not dramatic, but steady and clear, that this particular choice has a familiar feel, that you have stood at this fork before. Maybe the options were worded differently. Maybe the stakes felt different. Maybe you were younger, or the people involved were different, or the context made it harder to see clearly what you were choosing. But the underlying choice, the real one beneath the surface details, is one your soul remembers. And what makes this moment different from all the times before is that you are aware of the recognition. You are not moving forward in blindness. You are not convincing yourself that this is entirely new ground when something deeper in you knows that it is not. That awareness is the game changer. Because a choice that is made in full consciousness, even if the options are familiar, even if the territory is known, is a fundamentally different kind of choice than one made on autopilot. You are choosing consciously now, and that means the outcome can be fundamentally different from what came before. Honor the recognition, let it sharpen your sight, and then, with full awareness, make the choice that the version of you who has lived through this before would most want you to make. 4. A familiar tension is settling into your chest, the same kind that came before a difficult moment in the past. You know this feeling. You may not have named it precisely, but your body knows it. It is not panic. It is not sharp and sudden the way crisis feels. It is a slow settling weight, a density in the chest, a particular quality of holding your breath without realizing you are doing it. It is the feeling that comes when something is not quite right, but you cannot yet point to exactly what it is. When the ground you are standing on is solid enough for now, but something underneath it has begun to shift in a direction that concerns you. Taurus, your body is one of the most honest instruments you have. You live in it fully, more fully than most signs, and you have learned to trust its signals. The tension you are carrying right now is a signal. It is your body, which has lived through the history of your life and remembers every difficult chapter, telling you that it recognizes something in the current situation that bears your attention. This is not a signal to become afraid. It is not a signal to shut down or run. It is a signal to wake up more fully to what is happening around you, to look with more care, to listen with more precision, to trust your own perceptions rather than explaining them away. Because that tension, that familiar weight, has always been right before. And it is being right for you again now. 5. You are drawing in the same type of energy you once worked hard to move away from. You did the work. However you did it, through time, through hard conversations, through deliberately choosing differently, through letting things and people go even when it cost you, you moved yourself away from a kind of energy that was not serving your life. And for a while it felt like progress. It felt like you had genuinely crossed over into different territory. But lately, you may be noticing that the same type of energy, not the same people necessarily, but the same quality, the same flavor, the same particular kind of dynamic, has begun to reappear in your life. It arrives wearing different clothes, presents itself through different circumstances. But underneath the surface, it carries the same essential signature that you once spent so much effort moving away from. This is the nature of patterns that have not yet been fully resolved. They do not disappear permanently just because the circumstances around them change. They return again and again until the root of the attraction, the reason you keep drawing this energy in, is genuinely understood and genuinely healed. This is not a failure. This is an invitation. The reappearance of this energy is the universe saying, there is still something here for you to understand. There is still something in this pattern that is trying to teach you something important about yourself. Face it this time with the full intelligence and awareness of everything you have already lived through. Because the lesson, when it is finally received in its fullness, will set you free from this pattern in a way that is permanent and real. If this message is resonating with your sign right now, trust that it is not a coincidence. When the universe wants to speak to you, it sends exactly the right signal at exactly the right moment. And you are here because you needed to hear this today. Your support, whether as a subscriber or as a member of this community, is what keeps these messages alive. The ones that touch hearts, awaken minds, and transform lives. If this video has been making sense to you, drop in the comments the day you were born. Let us keep going. 6. A relational dynamic that caused you pain before has returned wearing a different face. Taurus, you love deeply. When you open your heart to someone, whether in friendship, in love, in family, in any form of close connection, you give fully and faithfully. And you are patient with people in a way that speaks to the depth of your care. But sometimes that love and that patience have allowed you to stay in dynamics that were slowly eroding something important in you. Dynamics where you gave more than you received. Dynamics where your loyalty was taken for granted rather than honored. Dynamics where your needs were consistently placed last. Where your voice was quieted by someone else's louder needs. Where you absorbed what was not yours to carry because you believed in the connection enough to make that sacrifice. You moved out of at least one of those dynamics at some point. It cost you. It may have cost you significantly, but you did it. And then you went forward and built new connections, better ones, or so it seemed. But now, if you look carefully at one or more of your current relationships, you may begin to see the same structural dynamics emerging again. The imbalance, the quiet self-erasure, the sense that you are working harder for the connection than the other person is, the feeling of making yourself smaller to avoid conflict or to maintain peace. This is not a verdict on the other person. It is information about the pattern. It is showing you something you still need to see about where you are willing to place your attention, your energy, your open heart. You deserve relationships where your loyalty is matched. You deserve connections where your care is received and reciprocated. And recognizing this pattern as it reemerges, clearly, honestly, without defending it, is the first act of demanding that for yourself. 7. You keep making exceptions for behavior that you told yourself with full conviction you would no longer accept. You told yourself this. You may have said it out loud, or you may have said it only in the most private chamber of your own heart, but you said it with sincerity and with feeling. You said, "This is where I draw the line." You said, "I will not accept this again." You said it because you meant it, because you had been hurt enough to know it needed to be said, because some part of you recognized that your own willingness to make exceptions had been part of what allowed the pain to continue as long as it did. And then when the behavior appeared again, often more softly at first, more carefully packaged, more easily explained or justified, you made an exception. Just this once. Just because the circumstances were particular. Just because you wanted to believe in the best version of the person or situation. Just because Taurus at your core always wants to give one more chance. But every exception reinforces the pattern. Every exception sends a message to the other person and, more importantly, to yourself about what you are actually willing to accept. And that message shapes the reality you continue to live in. This is not a judgment. This is a gentle and clear invitation to look at where you are making exceptions right now, and to ask yourself honestly whether those exceptions are acts of grace and wisdom or acts of old habit and the fear of a different kind of discomfort. You already know the answer, and this time you have the strength to honor it. 8. A moment is approaching that mirrors a turning point you have stood at before. You can feel it the way you always feel things before they arrive, not through prediction or logic, but through that deep, quiet sense of knowing that lives in your body and in the still place inside you that words rarely reach. A moment is coming, a choice point, a place where the road forks and you will need to be clear about which direction you are actually going to go. You have stood here before. Maybe the external circumstances look different. Maybe you were in a different season of life. But the internal experience, the particular quality of that crossroads feeling, the weight of what is being asked of you, is something your deeper self recognizes completely. And here is the most important thing to understand about this approaching moment. Every previous time you stood at this kind of crossroads, you had less than you have now. You had less experience, less self-knowledge, less clarity about what you truly want and what you truly deserve. You may have chosen from fear, or from the desire to maintain peace, or from the belief that what you wanted was not actually available to you. But you are standing here again, and this time, everything is different inside you. The knowledge is different. The relationship with your own worth is different. The understanding of what is possible for you in your life is different. This time, you are standing at this crossroads with everything you have ever learned about yourself from every chapter of your life that came before. Let all of it be available to you in this moment. Because the choice you make at this turning point has the power to rewrite what comes next in a way that is fundamentally different from what has come before. 9. Your feelings around a specific theme are stronger than the situation calls for, because they carry old weight. You may have noticed this without fully understanding why. A situation arises, one that, measured on its own, is not catastrophic, not particularly dramatic, Not the kind of thing that should produce the intensity of feeling it produces in you. But your response is larger than the moment. Your reaction carries a weight and a heat that feels disproportionate. And instead of that being a sign that something is wrong with you, it is actually a sign that something is finally being surfaced that has needed to be seen for a long time. Because when our responses are larger than the current situation warrants, it is almost always because they are carrying the accumulated weight of every previous time that same theme caused us pain. Every time you felt that particular kind of hurt and did not fully process it. Every time you absorbed something difficult and moved on without letting yourself really grieve or truly understand what happened to you. All of that unprocessed experience lives in you still. Not in your mind necessarily, not in your memory in a way you can always access clearly, but in your body and in your emotional response system. And when a current situation touches that old wound, the response that comes up is not just for today. It is for all the days before. This is not weakness. This is the invitation to heal at the deepest level. The strength of what you are feeling right now is telling you exactly where the real work of this season lies, and it is pointing you toward a freedom you have not yet been able to reach. 10. A voice inside you is speaking quietly but firmly, saying you already know what to do. You do. That is the truth of this sign, and it may be the most important one of the 11. Beneath the analysis, beneath the weighing of options, beneath the back and forth of hope and doubt and all the considerations that your thorough, patient mind moves through, there is a voice. Quiet but not uncertain. Steady but not aggressive. It is the voice of the part of you that has watched your entire life unfold, that has been present for every chapter, that has held the full account of your experience in a way that your conscious mind cannot always access. And that voice knows. It knows what this is. It knows what the pattern has cost you. It knows what choosing differently would look like and feel like. It knows what you are capable of that you have not yet fully allowed yourself to express. And it is speaking to you right now beneath all the noise of everything else. The question is not whether you can hear it. You can. The question is whether you are willing this time to trust it more than you trust the louder voices. The voice of comfort, the voice of old loyalty, the voice of the fear of change. Because that quiet voice inside you has never been wrong about the things that truly matter. It has only ever been overruled. Let it lead this time, Taurus. It knows exactly where you need to go. 11. This pattern is showing you the exact moment where you once chose one path, and where you now have the wisdom and the strength to choose a different one. This is the gift inside the difficulty. This is the reason the pattern has returned. Not to defeat you. Not to prove that change is impossible. Not to drag you back into something that diminished you. It has returned because it has one more thing to give you, the chance to stand at the same crossroads you have stood at before and choose differently. With full knowledge, with full awareness, with everything you now carry that you did not have the last time you were here. You are standing at the exact point of transformation, Taurus. Not in some distant future. Right here, right now, in this moment where the pattern is making itself clear to you and where your eyes are open enough to see it for exactly what it is. And the fact that you are here, watching this, listening to this, feeling this resonate in the way that truth always resonates, is itself a sign. A sign that you have already made a choice on some level. You have chosen consciousness over autopilot. You have chosen to look clearly rather than look away. You have chosen, even if only in the privacy of your own awareness, to give yourself a chance at a different outcome this time. That choice is the first domino. And when it falls, the rest will follow in a direction that leads you somewhere your old pattern never could. If this message resonated with your sign, trust that it is not a coincidence. When the universe wants to speak to you, it always sends exactly the right signal. And you are here because you needed to hear this today. Your support as a subscriber or as a member of this community is what keeps these messages alive. They are the messages that touch, awaken, and transform. If this video made sense to you, leave in the comments the day you were born. Taurus, what you have just heard is not an easy message. It would have been simpler to hear only about possibilities and blessings and smooth roads ahead. But you are not someone who needs to be handled gently with half-truths. You are someone who can receive the full truth and do something real with it. You are strong enough to look at a pattern clearly. You are wise enough to see it without sinking into shame. You are grounded enough to hold the weight of honest awareness without collapsing under it. And that is precisely why this message found you today. Because you are ready. Not ready the way we are ready when things are easy, but ready the way Taurus is always ready for the things that truly matter. in the deep, patient, immovable way. You have done enormous work to get to this level of self-awareness. The seasons you have walked through, the choices that cost you something, the quiet dignity with which you kept going even when parts of you were aching. All of it has built the exact foundation that this moment is standing on. This pattern is not your destiny. It is not the final word on who you are, or what your life will hold. It is simply the last remaining challenge of a chapter that is completing itself. And on the other side of this completion, on the other side of the choice you are being invited to make, of the clarity you are being invited to claim, there is a version of your life that does not carry this weight anymore. A version that is lighter, clearer, and more fully aligned with everything you have always been at your truest and most whole. That is where you are going, Taurus. Not by force, not by fighting, but by finally, gently, wholly choosing yourself.